Today, I wanted to take a look back at ERMES Gasparini versus LEVAN Saginashvili at King of the Table. I think this is super interesting because, and I've talked about this before, but I do think that ERMES is probably the one with the very best chance of doing anything to LEVAN. He's certainly not the favorite if they do pull again, but I think he has a better chance than anyone else. So taking a look at this ready go, we're going to be looking primarily at round 3. I think this is the round where everything really happens. This is the one where ERMES has the very best chance of doing anything. And I think the important part here is looking at ERMES' back pressure. In the Devin versus LEVAN match, we saw that Devin was able to challenge LEVAN's hand and wrist, but it was primarily with his pronation. Of course, his back pressure is still there, but ERMES, on the other hand, you notice that his wrist is kicked back already. He's lost his radial deviation. His wrist rise has failed him, but he has that really solid connection through that lower strap. And you can see that as LEVAN tries to go sideways, the stop is clearly on ERMES' bicep. You can see him bounce off right here, that little bounce off. So the stop is from ERMES' bicep. It's from his elbow flexor. And we know that Devin is probably capable of maybe lifting somewhere like around 70 kilograms on an elbow flexor lift. Well, ERMES has just hit 95 kilograms. Another very important moment in the match right here. That differs from the Devin match is right here. LEVAN notices, okay, I can't finish. I don't think I can quite finish. Begins to come forward. And as LEVAN comes forward, he is gifting ERMES access once again to that elbow flexor. Now ERMES has even more access. Now he can rise through his thumb even better because LEVAN isn't even hitting outside anymore. He's coming forward. As soon as ERMES feels that, ERMES cracks LEVAN's wrist back and he begins to take center table. So LEVAN realizes, okay, this is not going to work. That is not the lane that I can beat ERMES in. So it's very different when we compare Devin versus LEVAN, for example, to ERMES versus LEVAN. ERMES is getting that stop almost all through his arm power, even though his pronation, his pronator muscle seems to be failing, his wrist flexor muscle is failing, his radial deviation is failing. But that back pressure, that 95 kilo back pressure, and at this point, maybe only like 90 kilo back pressure is holding. And ERMES has to go outside first in order to get that stop. And then the moment happens where he transitions. So ERMES is using two moves here. He gets the stop. He doesn't allow LEVAN to come forward. LEVAN has to stay outside, and by staying outside, LEVAN is open. He's exposing his own elbow flexor. This wouldn't have worked against Devin because Devin, his elbow flexor was not strong enough to do this. LEVAN was able to stay forward. He was able to continue having his shoulder connection in the Devin match, but he couldn't do that against ERMES because we saw earlier as he did that, as he tried to maintain his shoulder commitment and come forward, he starts losing his wrist. So he has to hit all the way outside. And by doing that, that is what gives ERMES the access to bring his shoulder forward because now LEVAN has exposed his own bicep. And we see ERMES in other parts of this match try to just bring his shoulder forward right off the go. He tries to just open the match with a flop press. That doesn't work. ERMES first has to challenge the hand of LEVAN with his back pressure to get LEVAN to commit fully to the outside move, and only then can he transition to this inside move. So this is why Jerry Caderet versus LEVAN is probably a terrible idea. ERMES had to go outside first in order to be able to go inside. And I don't think LEVAN can pin here. I don't think he's just sitting here gassing ERMES out. I think that LEVAN is in a little bit of trouble there. And so we've seen already, and we're going to skip to the next go here. We've seen already that, oh, this might be, is this where he gets flashed? No. Okay, we get another restart. Okay. Same exact thing. ERMES' wrist gets crumpled, but his elbow flexion is what is getting him that stop. It's why the match is not going to the pin pad. ERMES is almost out the back, kind of underneath LEVAN's hand, and LEVAN is overpronated. So LEVAN does not have good access to side pressure here. He doesn't even have good access to back pressure here. He's kind of in no man's land. He's too far in a top roll, but he also knows that ideally he would come forward, but he knows that if he comes forward, ERMES is going to crack that wrist. So this is extremely awkward. And you see him wanting to come forward. It's not that LEVAN can't come forward. We saw him do it against Devin. He can do it, but he knows that if he does that, ERMES is going to be able to fight the hand again. And that's a problem for him. And this was the very most exciting moment, I think, as an ERMES fan, is when he begins to open the bicep of LEVAN. And it might be that the very next ready go is one where he gets flash pinned. Let's see here. Yeah, this is the one where he gets flashed. So I don't know exactly what happened here and why ERMES was not able to get the stop. Maybe he switched something up a little bit. Maybe he was just gassed out. But the point is, this moment right here is the very closest moment anyone has had when he's rocking LEVAN back and forth. He's beginning to open the bicep of LEVAN. ERMES is now in the more efficient position. So I find this to be super, super interesting. I do think that because of this moment, ERMES' ability to hit outside with his back pressure, prevent LEVAN from coming forward, and that gives ERMES access to come forward. I think he has the very best chance of at least getting a pin on LEVAN, and I think it likely will happen in this flop press lane. ERMES' back pressure, his wrist rise, his pronation is now even stronger than it was before, which means that LEVAN will have to even further prioritize hand control. And that means that he will be left even more vulnerable to a flop press. So I think ERMES really does have solid chances of, through this first hit outside, then transition to a flop press lane, to at least get a pin on LEVAN. Again, he's not the favorite. It's going to be extremely difficult. But I think that he can potentially get a pin doing this. So I just thought this was very interesting to look back at this now that the Devin versus LEVAN match has happened, because ERMES and Devin kind of are opposite. Devin has that stronger hand, but the weaker arm, and then ERMES has the stronger arm, but the weaker hand, and it's super interesting. I do think that the stronger arm, weaker hand combination is going to have a better chance of defeating LEVAN. So let me know what you guys think about this. Do you agree that ERMES probably has the best shot at least getting a round off of LEVAN? Or do you think it's going to be somebody more like Alex Kurdecha, who's going to attack LEVAN in a more similar way as to Devin? I do think that this is possible that Alex Kurdecha could do something in the future, but I do think it probably is going to be further out into the future. So I do think that ERMES, at least in the meantime, has a better chance than anyone else. Hopefully we get to see this rematch sometime in the next year.